Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Speak Out Loud, the story behind the brand podcast. My name is Lynette Jackson, and I'm so excited to be here with you again for episode number two. Episode number two. This is season one, episode number two. And boy, do we have an amazing show today for you. Oh my goodness, an amazing show. This show is actually very, very near and dear to my heart. We're talking about death by suicide, mental health in the Black community. And I have someone very, very special today that is going to really help shed some amazing light on this subject. And he's going to tell us, of course, about the story behind the brand. But before we get started, I just want to introduce myself to some of you. If you have never seen me before, my name is Lynette Jackson, and I'm an author, I am a speaker, and I am the owner of Roar Media Group, a digital marketing company that helps its clients speak out loud in the marketplace with graphics and websites and videos and voiceovers and strategic plans. The reason why we started Roar Media Group, there's a story behind my brand, was because I wanted to provide quality products, quality graphics and quality products for clients at affordable prices. And I do this for churches. I do it for small businesses, startups. I do it for ministry leaders, pastors. And I wanted to do this podcast because there's always a story behind the what. There is the story behind why a person started what they're doing. And so we want to tell those stories. Roar Media Group also tells stories in the form of videos. And so we want to tell your story. So if you are interested in having Roar Media Group tell your story, you can reach out to us at roarmediagroup.com. So again, as I mentioned, today's show is so awesome. It is so near and it's so dear to my heart. And so, but before we get started, I want to play a little bit of a clip that we're going to talk about. So watch this.
What I find disturbing in our community, the African American community, is that we can talk about a thyroid, we can talk about cancer, breast cancer, AIDS even, but we won't deal with the mental. And that's an issue.
That is an issue. That is a big issue. But today, we are going to speak out loud about mental health in the Black community. And with the recent suicides of the former Miss USA and Ian Alexander, Regina King's son, I just felt it was such a need for us to speak out loud, and why we in the Black community do not feel it's important to seek help when we are feeling depressed or having feelings of depression or anxiety. All this and much more coming next on Speak Out Loud, the podcast, the story behind the brand. We'll be right back. Well, welcome back, everyone. You are watching the podcast, the live podcast of Speak Out Loud, the story behind the brand. And today's guest is someone so special to my heart. I was introduced to this gentleman by a very close friend of mine, And once I met him, I think it was, we're going to work together after our very first conversation that we had. He is a brilliant mind, and he has an incredible story behind the brand as to why he started this amazing company. And he is my client, and I love him so very much for the work that he is doing. And so, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce to some and present to others Mr. Robert Adams. Hey, Rob.
Hey, Lynette, how are you?
I am so good. I am so good. It is so good to see you, sir.
And
Always a pleasure to talk to you and chat with you about something that is very special to both of us. I'll never forget when Barry Jones introduced the two of us, and I spoke with you on the phone. I was like, I'm going to work with this guy because I felt your passion and your heart. I felt your love for what you were doing and your story behind why you started an amazing telehealth, mental telehealth company
mhm.
was just phenomenal. So before we get started, I always ask my guests the four clarity questions, and that is, who are you? What do you do? Why do you do it? And who do you do it for?
So, Lynette, let me first say thank you for allowing me to be a part of your show. You've done an amazing job with all of our social media work at Telehealth 24/7. And I'm watching your intro, and the only thing that came to mind was there she is again. There she goes again. She continues to she continues to take it to another level. And that's what it's really all about. So, as you said, my name is Robert Adams, and I am the Chief Executive Officer of Telehealth 24/7. Telehealth 24/7 is a virtual mental health care company designed for communities of color. And we continue to really create access, accessibility, as well as affordability to those who are in need of mental health care, coaching, counseling, and if need be, medication management. And so we are proud to be able to be a part of this solution that so many in our community are struggling with. And so that is telehealth 24/7 in a nutshell.
Wow. Well, I'll never forget when I met you and you started off talking about student telehealth. And so that's where the story behind the brand really started. So, truth be told, you didn't start with just telehealth, right? You started with student telehealth. So, tell everybody why you wanted, I'll never forget the conversation, but I'll let you tell it, why
Yes.
you started student telehealth.
Well, when I look back at my own collegiate career, and I'm a proud graduate of Virginia State University in Petersburg, Virginia, but when I look back at my collegiate career, I realized that it was a tremendous change for me.
Mhm.
Leaving mom and dad's house from New Jersey, going to Virginia, you're over 300 miles away from home, and you're pretty much on your own. And for most
Mhm.
students, it's their first opportunity to really grow up, to really be challenged with some of the life's challenges, and now to utilize some of the skill sets that your parents have instilled in you.
Mhm.
So for my personal experience with my daughter, so my youngest daughter, her name is Addison, and Addison today is 21, and she will be 22 in April. But when Addison was 15, she was diagnosed with bipolar depression.
Okay.
And because of how I always logged over my college career at Virginia State, I knew that Addison wanted to go away to college. But my
Yes.
concern was if she had gone away, and understanding the challenges that many students face the first time away from home, uh, not never having a roommate and not being able to understand compromising and resolution, conflict and resolution, having to manage their academics as well as their social life, and some of the bullying and everything that goes on in today's
Mm.
society. If Addison suffered a relapse, as a parent, what options do I have? Right. And
Right.
so as I started to visit colleges, And I started to learn that many colleges, like my own, had 5,000 students and one mental health therapist on
Wow.
campus. And the challenge is number one, having one mental health therapist is really a challenge for 5,000 students. But
Yes.
at the same time, the location is on campus, and anonymity is paramount with
Yes.
so many people who are looking for help. And so most students would not go to the building. And so when you put two and two together, in today's society, students utilize technology for almost everything they do. Hey, heck, they date on technology,
That's right.
on technology, right? So why not develop something, a process, a system, a solution that can meet them where they are? And so this is how Telehealth 24/7 was born. So it's a virtual mental health care company that is designed for those who are in need of mental health coaching, counseling, as well as medication management. You can maintain your anonymity by being able to utilize your smart device anytime from any place to talk with your mental health coach, your counselor, or meet with your prescriber. And so this is where we are. And again, our goal is to really make a difference. We know that in our community, people need help. And why not create a vehicle and give them an opportunity to get exactly what they need?
So you know what? I just love the fact that we named this the story behind the brand because this beautiful story came out. So you built this company starting with helping students because of your daughter. And you just knew and understand that there was no place for her to go if she needs help. And then the stigma attached to students. And what you mentioned a few seconds ago was about bullying. You know, social media, you could think people get bullied on social media and things like that. And in college campus, no one wants to know, like, oh my God, you're going to see a therapist. Oh my God,
Exactly.
that stigma attached to that. So I commend you first and foremost for wanting to start something to, I think that purpose is birthed out of pain sometimes. And this
Hmm.
was something that you wanted to solve a problem. And so instead of saying somebody needs to create this company so that my daughter could get this help. What I love about what you did is, and this is a beautiful story for anyone who is looking to say, hey, I need to start something. You started this thing based on the fact that you wanted to help your daughter. And I just love that. And I love the fact that, you took a situation and you turned it into something positive for not only her, but for the world
Others,
to
exactly.
express and to be a part of. And
Exactly,
so
because I know I'm not the only parent, right? And I know that my
exactly.
daughter isn't the only daughter or son that may be struggling. And then also my exposure. I've been blessed to spend 30 years in the pharmaceutical industry, and the
Yes.
last 8 years has been in mental health. And so, unfortunately, I have seen some of the worst of the worst, and many
Okay.
of us are in that particular category. We don't get diagnosed because of the stigma that's attached to mental
Absolutely.
health. And sometimes it's the wrong diagnosis. And
Absolutely.
then
Oh
we
yeah.
don't, we don't take the medication. And
That's right.
so oftentimes what I've learned is that when we're not properly diagnosed or when we don't take the medication that is prescribed to us, we continue to do what's called have a relapse. And when you
Absolutely.
have relapse, psychosis, psychiatric relapses, you continue to lose a minimum of 1% of cognitive functionality. You
Wow.
continue to decline. And unfortunately, so many of those that are declining are in communities of color because
Are
of the
in
stigma
communities
that's
of color.
attached. Absolutely.
Absolutely. I know that to be true. As I said, this is something special to me. I suffer from depression and anxiety as a result of trauma, a
Hmm.
series of events that took place in my life where I lost my mother, I lost a job, I moved my son and my family to another state, and I was fired within 4 months. I took my nephew. I was with my nephew when he was diagnosed with cirrhosis of the liver at 36, and I was with him when he passed away at his bedside with his mother. And then I took my sister, who was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. I took her off life support at 52. Interesting enough about her diagnosis, she was misdiagnosed for years. And you and I have had this conversation, and I pray to
Absolutely.
Jesus I don't cry right now, because I think of the number of times that she was beaten, that she was misdiagnosed, that she was thrown in the back of a paddy wagon in Philadelphia, that she was physically abused, sexually abused, socially abused, and mentally abused because she had an illness. And she was misdiagnosed for years. And even as a kid growing up, I'm the youngest of seven, and she's the third child. We thought in families that it's like, why can't she just be regular? What's wrong? You know, you always have that one child. It's like, oh, why can't they be perfect? Or why can't they be regular in families? Or that family members, like you always talk about Uncle Pete, I think, from Soul Food. They just
Soul
want to
food.
toss them away
Yeah,
and put them away. And
yeah,
we don't get them the diagnosis. And so fast forward, when my mother passed and left me power of attorney, I really got to understand that she had an illness. She had an illness. She wasn't just trying to be the demon seed where, most churches will deem you, oh, she's just the bad seed, or she's the bad one out of the bunch. There's always one apple or one egg that's a little cracked. And it's just so many horrible things that people would say about people who are struggling with mental illness. I felt so bad that years later, I'm like, oh my God, my sister went through so much, and she was just ill. She was ill, and she eventually passed away. I removed her from life support, but she was ill. And
right,
so I saw the abuse that she sustained, not from our family, but from others, because my mother didn't know what to do. And
right.
so I see her, she was locked up, and just so many things that, just hurts us as a family because we don't understand and we don't know how, as a Black community, to talk about it. I want to play a little video that I found from Taraji, that I think sums this up, what I'm trying to say, really well. So let me just show you this.
What I find disturbing in our community, the African American community, is that we can talk about a thyroid, we can talk about cancer, breast cancer, AIDS even, but we won't deal with the mental. And that's an issue. I struggle with depression and anxiety. I would have to say I realized it about 2 years ago. I noticed the mood swings. Like, one day I'd be up and the next day I'd be down, feeling like I don't want to go out in public, almost agoraphobic, like, too much to deal with, feeling really awkward in my skin, feeling out of sorts, and just down, like Debbie Downer, like a dark cloud. And then there would be days where my brain wouldn't stop racing, I would think of the most worst scenarios in the world, which would heighten my anxiety. And, people were like, you just need to meditate and yoga and things like that. And I would do that, but my brain would still race. For me, there was no shame when I started to recognize it. It was like that I had to get some help because I'm the life of the party. And when I go dark, I go dark. I don't want to leave the house. And my friends started to notice me pulling back. And my father, who also had his issues with mental health, was really open about it, about his manic depression. But as I think back, no one else really talked about it. It was hush hush, or, he just crazy, or, things like that. For my dad, what he needed was a culturally competent therapist. And it's not even about the skin color or the race. It's about being culturally competent. And the reason why we can't find culturally competent therapists is because at home, in the African American community, we don't talk about mental health. It's a stigma surrounding it.
Wow, Robert, that was a lot. I want to unpack a
That was
little
a
bit
lot.
of that. Was a lot, but I
Exactly.
think she summed it up probably better than what I could have summed it up. But I want to kind of unpack a little bit of some of the things that she said. She
Sure.
said she had mood swings. She was awkward in her skin, feeling out of sort, brain racing, but she understood that she needed help. When she goes dark, she goes dark. Friends would notice and they began to see her pull away, which I'm grateful for those friends that saw that. And so, talk a little bit something about going dark. Talk about that, Robert.
So Lynette, there was a couple things, and like you said, there was a lot that she shared. So I'm not sure exactly when that video had aired, but if you
Hmm.
saw in the very beginning, she said she just came to terms 2 years ago,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
So again, she's an adult. And so
Yes.
when you think about someone who is an adolescent, someone
Hmm.
who's in their teens or early 20s, and still have not come to terms, that is an internal struggle, right?
Right.
And so that is a challenge when you cannot come to terms and you constantly are internally struggling. Some
Hmm.
days you feel great, some days you don't. The other aspect of it that she talked about is that what a lot of people don't realize is that mental health is genetic, right? And
Yes.
so it is something that we are born with,
Hmm.
and we can make it worse by not getting the help or not staying on the medication. But
Oh, that's
it's
good.
something that we're born with. And again, we always have used the term that no one is perfect, right?
Correct.
But no one thinks about that in terms of the things you cannot see about the person. We think about
Right.
it in
Right.
terms of the physical aspects of people in which you can see when you say no one is perfect. But again,
Right.
no one is perfect. And so there are so many who are struggling with mental health challenges. And
Yes.
then if there is a situation where you've been verbally abused, where
Yes.
you've been physically abused or
Hmm.
sexually abused, or been exposed to trauma or grief at a
Hmm.
very early and young age. There are so many things that impact how you
Correct.
process information, how your body now stores it, how you now can exemplify that information in which you've processed. And sometimes it's just not what we call normal. And
Yes.
that's the other aspect of it. The reason why she also said that we can talk about other illnesses and mainly
Hmm.
those are physical illnesses is because those illnesses have been normalized, right? Everyone knows what a heart attack is. Everyone
Yes, that's
knows what a
good.
stroke is. People
What
know
diabetes is, right.
diabetes or hypertension. And so they even illustrate how the blood flows through arteries and what happens when those arteries begin to clog up. And so because we have normalized those other illnesses, it you don't think twice about going to see the doctor.
Right,
You don't
right.
think twice about getting lab tests done or
Hmm.
taking the medication for it. But when it comes to mental illness, because we're still in that phase of making it a normal process,
Hmm.
it now becomes a challenge. And
Right.
so many go dark. So many are in that bout, and then there's seasonal depression. And
Hmm.
sometimes, if you're not in tune to what's going on from the outside, you wonder what's going on. This beautiful person, she's jovial, she's beautiful, she's an attorney, she's Miss
Right.
USA, she has it all going for herself, and all of a sudden, she commits suicide. There's pain
Right.
inside.
There
And so it's
is.
really challenging for so many who are struggling. And this is why, again, Telehealth 24/7 has come to the forefront to be a solution for those who are struggling.
Yes, and I we wanted to do this show. I talked with Robert about doing it because we want to get you before you get to the process of thinking about taking your life and having death by suicide. And you and I talked about that term. It used to be, oh, they committed suicide, and but it's an illness, and so it's not. It's a death by that particular illness. No one would say, oh, well, they committed cancer. So that's why they passed away or whatever. But it's death by suicide, and it's an illness. And so this show, we wanted to bring some light so that we don't have people going to that point of suicidal ideation. Is that the proper? I want to make sure I'm saying the correct word. Is that right?
That is a proper terminology. Suicidal ideation are thoughts of
Or
suicide,
thoughts of suicide? Yes,
attempts of suicide,
yes.
planning suicide, anything with the idea
Mm.
of committing a suicide is suicidal ideation. And really, what it really is the pain inside is
Yes.
so
Oh my goodness.
overwhelming that
Yes.
they want the pain to stop. They
Yes.
want the
Yes.
pain to stop. They're hurting. And so this is why someone would take the time to plan
To
and
plan.
hurt themselves or kill themselves because they're hurting inside.
Because and I again, I suffered from depression and anxiety during this as a result of trauma that came into my life. And I mean, you want to talk about the darkness, the pain just wouldn't go away. And I wanted at any cost to make the pain go away. And
Hmm.
so we try to self medicate. I
Yep.
tried to self medicate to make the pain go away. And when you live in those moments where you can't turn your brain off, or you can't stop thinking or mulling over a situation, the only thing that you think of is, well, if I'm not here anymore, then I don't have to hear that anymore. I don't have to deal with the pain. There was an article that I found. I just want to read a little bit and get your take on this. It was from American Health Rankings. It says suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States. And it is the fourth leading cause of death for adolescents between the ages of 15 and 19 globally. In 2019, there was an estimated 3.5 million people who planned or had suicidal ideation, planned
Hmm.
a suicide, 1.4 million suicide attempts, and 47,511 deaths by suicide. Interesting, I found this to be interesting, was firearms were involved in half of all suicides. And there were twice as many suicides by firearms versus suicides versus homicides. And it says when someone dies by suicide as the cause of death, the loss is felt by many people. The ripple
Absolutely.
effect spreads from close family members to friends, to the community, to acquaintances, and to people who didn't even know the decedent. And so all of it has an exposure of grief and trauma to all of us. And I
Absolutely.
mean, I felt that way when I read about Regina King's son. I have two sons, and I always have
Hmm.
to check their pressure. They're hey, how you doing? What's going on? Are you good? Do you need anything? Do you need to talk? And I think that's important that we learn how to talk to our students. We learn how to talk to our family members, and let them know. Don't push them, but let
Right.
them know that we are there for you. You don't have to suffer in silence. We need to talk about it. It is okay for us to talk about this. And if you need help, we can get you some help. And this is why this show to me is so important, because Telehealth 24/7 is a place
Yep.
where you can get help. So if you are listening to this program and you are feeling having dark sides, like Taraji said, if you're feeling like your brain is just racing, if you are feeling like you are all alone, if you need help, please, 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 if it's an emergency, first of all, we want you to pick up and call 911. That's first and foremost.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But if you want to get some help, we
Right.
want you to go to telehelp247.org.
Absolutely.
Telehelp247.org, because we have people there that can help you navigate life's challenges. And Telehelp wants to meet you where you are. So, Robert, I want us to kind of talk a little bit about what some of the services that telehealth has. So we
Sure.
talked about the fact that telehealth started with students. It was a thought process of students. As a matter of fact, I have a clip of your daughter explaining why it's important for students to get help if they need it. I'm going to show that right now.
One of the benefits
Great.
about Telehealth 24/7 is that they don't have to physically walk into a building on campus where other classmates and other peers are going to see them and question their mental health or question if they're okay. They get to do this within the privacy of their own rooms, their cars, and in solitude, and none of their friends have to really know. So this is very beneficial because we are experts in technology with smartphones and smart devices. We can easily navigate it versus other generations of the past. And so with this new platform, it makes telehealth counseling more interactive and more inviting for us.
Well, first of all, that really blesses me because she's such a cutie. And for her to speak out and talk about this and want to share what her dad's doing to help so many people, I think it's really, amazing to put her face on the brand to say, I'm not ashamed of this, but I want you to know that I've been where you've been. And I felt the pain that you felt, but you don't have to suffer in silence anymore. Talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely. So, Lynette, when I look at that video, I see the blessings that
Yes.
we have and what God has done. And
Yes.
the bottom line is the Addison you see today was not the Addison you saw 5 years ago,
My
right?
goodness.
And today, she continues to blossom out of this
Hmm.
world. I'm proud to say that, again, she's a senior at Virginia State University. She'll be graduating in May. She is currently has a 3.93 cumulative
Woo.
GPA, and she is in all sorts of activities. Just recently became a Delta Sigma Theta sorority, a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority, as well as the president of the organization. And
Wow.
in being able to manage all of the things she has going on, having opportunities to for internships. She just got something where she's going to be now one of the finalists for Viacom, which is a
Hmm.
CBS affiliate in LA, as well as she's actually traveling at the end of this week to the Super Bowl because she's been invited to be a part and work for the Super Bowl for the NFL.
Nice.
She has
Nice.
aspirations of being a sports agent and an entertainment agent. But all of this was made possible because number one, she was able to accept the illness or the challenges that she had.
Yes.
Number two, because we were able to put a solid network around her to
Yes.
help her on those dark days
Uh-huh.
and then teach her some of the coping skills that are needed when you begin to feel dark and when you
Yes.
start to have a down period, right?
Yes.
And then her being able to understand it, her being able to embrace it, and then to put it in motion has really made a difference for her. And so we're proud of her. And now
Yes.
she recognizes that so many of her peers are in the same type of situation as she's in.
Yes.
And so she
Yes.
has been very open about speaking out to her college peers and to others around the challenges around mental health, but the solution and the opportunity to actually get the help that they need. So we're really proud about that. And the other aspect of it is, as I was going to colleges to talk about telehealth 24/7, a lot of the presidents and the student
Hmm.
affairs and the provosts would ask me, can you do this for our employees? Can
Oh,
you do this
wow.
for our security?
Presidents
Because
and student
the bottom
affairs,
line
provost would
is so
ask
many
me.
people struggle.
Right.
And wherever there are people, there are people who are hurting. And so
Yes.
this is why we expanded telehealth 24/7. So now we're working with first responders. We're working
Okay.
with essential workers. We're
Yes.
working with obviously not just collegiate students, but the secondary school district, because so many things are felt with high schoolers, right? With
Hmm.
middle schoolers. Unfortunately, we see all of these mass shootings on college campuses and supermarkets. And when someone or something happens like that, it's felt all over the country.
Yes.
And so we want to make sure that we can help. One of the greatest things that have really come out of this is, and again, you mentioned it earlier, is the faith-based piece.
Yes.
I am happy to announce we're currently working with IMAC in Delaware, where IMAC stands for the Interdenominational Ministers Action Council. which is comprised of about 300 churches and pastors in
Yes.
Delaware. And we're working with them to create mental health ministries, and they
Mm.
all will create mental health ministry ambassadors to
Ah,
help their members navigate to our platform to get the help that they need. And so, whether it's dealing with grief, whether it's dealing with trauma, whether it's dealing with family and relationship challenges or substance use, again, helping people get the help they need is it's what it's all about. And again, for those who know our history, the church has always been the centerpiece when it comes
yes,
to black and brown communities
that's
that
right.
are struggling with everything. So from civil rights to making sure that we get our voices heard, voting rights, and everything else. So it just makes sense that the church
It
continues to
makes
be
so much
involved
sense.
with the healing, mental health
Yes.
healing of those from our communities.
You know, Robert, that the church piece is so special to me because on our very first phone call that you and I had, I actually was in the
Absolutely.
airport in West Palm Beach on my way back to
I
Atlanta,
remember. I remember.
and you were sharing about student telehelp, and I said, Robert, don't forget about the church because the church is hurting. The church has that stigma attached to them that I have a lack of faith, and that's why I can't, I can't get out of this because I have a lack of faith, or I don't have faith, or God doesn't like me, or I got a demon or some sort of spirit,
Right.
and it's so far from the truth. So far from the truth. And that thought process almost stopped me from going to therapy. I'm a Christian, and it almost stopped me from going to therapy. It's like, oh, I can't go to see a therapist because I'm a Christian and I don't have, that means I have a lack of faith. And, am I not trusting God? And it was God that said, listen, you need to go because you need some help, girl. And you need to go. And when I went, I found out that my therapist was a Christian. And
Hmm.
for the first 6 weeks, all I could do is cry. I could just cry for the first 6 weeks because I hadn't really grieved over the trauma that I had been through. And I just cried and cried and cried. And he was so awesome. But he shared the goodness and the love of God with me through therapy. And it was the greatest thing that had ever happened. I am so excited that Telehealth is going to be working with IMAC because that is a great, great partnership and a collaboration to get people in church the help that they need to,
Absolutely.
because grandma and them say, keep you keep that business in the house. We
Right.
don't talk about our business, we don't tell. But I want to let you know that everybody that's listening, if you want to talk this, a HIPAA laws does not allow us to even talk about this. If you have, you're talking to a therapist, none of this information can be given out. And so most churches we know didn't want to kind of get connected to it because they weren't sure. They didn't want pastor to know that they had some challenges, but pastor don't know anything about this, and he can't know about this by law. All we're doing is allowing people to be connected there,
Absolutely.
and we can get some help to the people. You know what? I really want to know if there's any questions out there. We have Alexis out there. She says, hey, how you doing? We have another Facebook user out there. Lynette, your podcast is so amazing. I'm so glad I'm able to listen. Such good information on mental health. Absolutely. It's a lot of great information on mental health. And if you guys have any questions, please ask Robert because, he's a wealth of knowledge in this particular area. And so, Robert, telehealth, part of its tagline is culturally competent
Hmm.
mental health care. And Taraji talked about the culturally competent piece in there. Talk about why that is so important and why that was so important to telehealth to be a part of its brand, because this is the story behind the brand.
So that's a great question. What is culturally competent? So,
Mhm,
in order for you to share your innermost challenges, your
mhm.
innermost fears, your innermost secrets, your hurts, your pain, there has to be a connection,
Yeah.
right? And typically, we connect with people who understand us,
Mhm.
who are familiar with our struggles, who are familiar with our history, and who are familiar with our community, right?
Mhm.
And most importantly, you want someone who is sensitive
Right.
to whatever your struggles are, to not be judgmental, but
Correct.
to be empathetic and then being able to help you navigate through it. And
Mhm.
so, part of the reasons why so many of us have not gotten culturally competent healthcare is because, number one, when it comes to mental health care, we were never encouraged to seek mental health as a career,
Yes.
because we were always told that communities of color don't seek psychiatric care. They don't
Yes.
seek mental health counseling. And so we were never encouraged to seek those opportunities as careers. And so
Mhm.
now that people of color are coming forward, it's important for us to find someone who can relate to us, who
Mhm.
can
Mhm.
relate to all of the challenges and ill wills that we struggle with in our community. And many of those are deep seated, many of them are generational curses. And so we need
Yes.
someone who can be sensitive to what our struggles are and
Yes.
then be willing to help us navigate by giving us the coping skills and the tools
Yes,
to move
Robert.
forward and to be strong. And so that's what culturally competent really means.
Yes. It again, my therapist was a brown person, okay?
Hmm.
So I had two things. I could speak to them. They understood my culture. They could understand some of the cultural things when we speak about things that are challenging us, or some of the
Absolutely.
things that we talk about in our families. They could understand that. And then he was a Christian as well, so it was two things. We have a comment. Teresa Perkins, this is an awesome setting to share this concern. I am just learning about telehelp247.org. As a social worker, I can now share this resource with others. Teresa,
Thank you,
this
Teresa.
is
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Please share this podcast with other people because, we are trying to prevent death by suicide, Teresa. And this is why we are talking about it. And it's not always the greatest conversation to have.
Right.
People don't talk about it. My mother used to say, whatever doesn't come out in the wash will come out in the rinse. And you, right. And listen, at every funeral, that's
Hmm.
when you find out all the stuff that didn't come out in the wash. It usually comes out in the rinse. And so we want to make sure that we are talking about the things that we need to talk about. We want to prevent those things from
Absolutely.
coming out later. We want to talk about them now. And then when you think about COVID, we haven't even talked about COVID, Robert, and how COVID has affected us in terms of the pandemic. But I do want to say one disclaimer. So I live behind a high school, a big, huge Christian high school, and it sounds like they're about to tune up for their football game. Their field is right behind me. So if you're hearing a little bit of something, some extra music in the background, they're kind of teeing up their PA system, and I'm hoping that they start their program at 7. So we've got about 15 more minutes. But I just wanted to make that disclaimer. Just if you hear something going a little strange, it's like I'm not playing crazy music. But I really want us to be able to share that information out to as many people as possible. So if you're listening to this show, please telehelp247.org. Go out there, take a look at it. You can if you have insurance, you can use your insurance.
Yep.
If you don't have insurance, you can pay, but you need to get the help. You do need to get the help. I really, really, I'm so excited to have you on, Robert. And so I want you to just, in the time that we have left over,
Mhm.
to talk about some of the statistics that you've discovered, because again, this show title is "Death by Suicide: Mental Health in the Black Community," and we want to prevent to death by suicide. We want you to get a checkup from the neck up. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I just recently I'm a lady of a certain age. And so at that certain age, I had to go get all my checkups, right? You know, you had to get they say from the rooter to
Read it to the
the
tutor.
tutor.
Right.
I got everything checked. And so we usually go get our annual checkups for our physical body. But how often do we get an annual checkup from the neck up? How often do we get that? Teresa has another comment. She said it is just so sad that many young people deal with this in silence, especially young male adolescents. That is so true. I recently had someone close to me commit suicide, and we feel for you. Prayers for you,
Absolutely.
your family, your friends, and the family of the person who died by suicide, because we do know that it is, you know, it's really tough. I used to have a coworker that I worked with. She and I were both at work the day her daughter died by suicide, and
Hmm.
I was with her when she got the call that her daughter had passed away, and so I understand how tough this could be. So, Robert, just share with us what some of the statistics that we are seeing, so that we understand that this is serious. This is a very, very serious thing.
So, Lynette, and you're absolutely right. It's serious, but the numbers are eye opening, and you were
Yeah.
able to share some numbers earlier. Doing my research, particularly from the collegiate level, it looks like there's about at least 1,100 suicides
Wow.
every year that happen with collegians. And, a lot of schools are not going to allow you to hear this information and know it because,
Mm.
as a parent, if you don't believe the school is safe, you won't send your child. And
Yes.
and more schools have to put more resources in student success. They have to put more resources for student resources and get them the help that they need, as so much comes down on them. When I was growing up, didn't have access to the internet when I
Correct.
was in college. Now, when you look at the internet, one of the great things about it is that you can see what's going on all over the world. You can
Yes.
touch and talk with people in different countries. One of the bad things about it is that you can see what's going on all over the world. And unfortunately, some of that can bring helplessness and unfortunately hopelessness.
Yes.
When someone feels helpless and hopeless,
Mm.
then this is part of the catalyst that
Yes.
creates the suicidal ideation.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so it's so important. I recently saw a statistic that looked at particularly HBCUs. There were
Mm.
28 HBCUs that had come forth to share their numbers. In
Wow.
2016, and these are pre pandemic numbers, 47% of the students out of these 28 HBCUs, which is really a barometer of all the HBCUs across the country,
Hmm.
suffer from anxiety. 47% suffer from anxiety.
Wow.
40% suffer from depression. Okay. 26% suffer from relationship issues and challenges, whether those relationships are with their peers on campus, and many relationship challenges stem from home.
Yes.
And then you have another 26% that are looking for some sort of medication management. And
Hmm.
so some of those numbers again are the catalysts, and if not dealt with early, continue to move towards the suicidal ideation that
Yes.
many students and people have. And again, it's just not students, but again,
Correct.
everybody unfortunately has to go through something. Life
Hmm.
can be challenging no matter
Yes.
where you are in the phase of life, but how
Yes.
to navigate through it. And when you're struggling with that navigation, this is where
Wow.
getting the help can really make a difference. I also saw some numbers, and particularly looking at HBCUs and African American students, period. And the numbers showed that for every student that leaves school,
Hmm.
that leaves school, 25% of them have been diagnosed with at least one mental health disability.
Wow.
So oftentimes we thought when students left school, maybe they didn't have their financial aid, right? Maybe they transferred for some other reason or got a job. It never dawned on me when I was coming up that maybe someone left school from suffering from a mental health challenge
Wow.
and stayed closer to home because now that's where their network is to help them navigate through that. And so these are some of the things that we are plagued with, and it's nothing to be ashamed of to reach help.
No, not at all.
It really is a brave thing to say, I'm struggling, I
Yes.
need help, and I'm going to make it my priority to get the help. You know, my father used to always say that the church is a hospital.
Hmm.
People who are hurting, whether it's spiritually, whether it's physically, being hungry, or whether it's mentally, have a place to come and to get healing. And so there's nothing wrong with that. And that is
Right.
what the church has been for our community of color. The other
Yes.
thing is that my bishop used to say, if God can ordain an orthopedist to help heal your bones, why can't he ordain a psychiatrist to help heal
Yes.
your mind? Right?
Yes.
And so again, there's nothing to be ashamed about at all to get the help that you need. Another thing that I want to share with you that's important because again, when you say meeting you where you are,
Hmm.
so typically we think in terms of whether you're virtual. So if you're in Atlanta and I'm in Delaware or I'm in Florida or somewhere else, we can still communicate and meet up.
That's
But
right.
also, it's also indicative that some people who go through certain situations do not put it under the umbrella of mental health.
Yes.
They would rather be
Wow.
coached than counseled.
Yes.
And
Hmm.
I recently learned this in dealing with a school that there was a death with one of
Hmm.
the students. And while many of the fellow students witnessed this death and had now been exposed to this grief and trauma, but they were resistant to being counseled through grief
Mm.
and trauma. So when we trained certified life coaches to
Hmm.
help them be coached through their grief and trauma,
Yes.
these students were more amenable to being coached.
Hmm.
And so, again, wherever you are in your hurt, in your pain, and your desire to get the help that you need, so whether it's mental health coaching, with certified life coaches that specialize in certain areas, where there's mental health counseling and therapy with
Hmm.
licensed providers who specialize in certain mental health disorders, or even if it's with a prescriber, a psychiatric nurse practitioner, or a psychiatrist that can help you with the chemical imbalance
That's
that you
right.
currently have mentally. The bottom line is telehealth 24/7 is a solution. And one of the uniqueness about our community, Black and Brown community, is that many students may not have the proper parenting,
That's
or
right.
their parent is in need of help.
That's right.
To be able to come to our platform and get a certified life coach that can maybe positively influence your son or daughter
Hmm.
and help them to stay on the right path
That's
rather
right.
than taking the left and going on the other path is something that's needed. So this is why what we're now introducing to the secondary school districts,
Hmm.
being able to have mental health coaching or
Hmm.
coaching period or mentorship, as well
Yes.
as counseling, therapy, and medication management. And so
Wow.
this is another example of telehealth 24/7 meeting you, the client, the student, the first responder, the pastor, the church member,
Wow.
meeting you where you are.
That is so awesome. First of all, I am so excited to have worked with you. And I think we've been working together since 2019,
2019. Yes,
2019. And
absolutely.
so
2019. Going
um,
on 3 years.
going on 3 years, and we've done a
Yes.
lot of work together. Let me just ask you, just because we're talking about Speak Out Loud, how has Roar Media Group helped Telehealth speak out loud in the marketplace?
It's been tremendous. And because you've been able to help us bring this story to light, right? Just like we speak it out, when everyone is going to our website at telehelp247.org, you also get a chance to see what Roar Media has done. When you see some of our commercials, that are out there that really tell the story and the ones that resonate with you, that is all Roar Media. So when you see us on Facebook, when you see us on Twitter, Instagram, as well as our website, as well as some of the information that we share on LinkedIn, that is all Roar Media. So just like you're talking about the brand and
Yes.
what's behind the brand is Roar Media.
Oh, well, you know what? It's first of all, this was easy. This was easy. I have to be honest. Some things aren't easy for us, but this
Hmm.
was really, really easy because I lived it. I'm passionate about it. And it was easy for me to get behind it. I'm so excited to do whatever Roar can do to help telehealth speak out loud in the marketplace. I'm excited about IMAC. I'm excited about my heart, which is churches and church leaders and building mental health ministries. we
Absolutely.
we have come so far from that process of, well, I don't want to tell nobody about what's going on, what I'm dealing. But here's the interesting thing, Robert. The first thing when someone has a challenge, the first thing they say, well, let me see if I can call who? Pastor,
Hmm.
and see if we can get. And the pastors, we want to get them trained so that they can be able to absorb the information and know how to direct people to the proper channels like a telehelp 24/7 to get the help, because they cannot take on everything. I was working with a pastor in North Carolina, and I was asking him if he had a program. What would he do if someone came to his church and they did not take their medication that day? And he said, that's interesting that you said that, because that did happen. And
Hmm.
so their church ushers and greeters have to know how to handle a person with dignity
Right.
that may come to church that may be a little disruptive because they don't have their medication. So I'm excited to partner with Telehelp 24/7. I love Telehelp 24/7. I love what Telehelp 24 it stands for, and I'm excited to be able to partner right with you and IMAC to be able to help churches in the communities. And if your church is interested
Yes,
in
absolutely.
because has starting a mental health ministry and want to know how you can get connected, go to telehelp247.org. You can reach out to Robert Adams. He's out on Facebook, he's on Instagram. You can go to telehelp, you can leave a message, and someone will get back with you and let you, give you all the information on how you can get connected. Robert, thank you so much
Lynette, thank you
for
so much for
for
having me.
and I
And
need to have you come back. And
absolutely,
and the
absolutely.
reason is there's a gentleman that I met that I'm going to introduce you to. Is a young gentleman. He goes around to schools and he talks about his problem and challenges that he had with as a college student, having anxiety and having to be on
Uh-huh.
medication. And so his name is Abraham Scully, and I'm going to have him come back when I have you come back, because really what we want to talk about the next time is how this pandemic, because we didn't even get a chance to touch that surface,
COVID-19, yeah.
the COVID-19, the pandemic. I'm exhausted as a result of this pandemic. And I quarantined alone. I live
Hmm.
alone and I quarantined alone. And so I always have joke around and said the only activity I had going around during the pandemic when we were quarantined was my robotic vacuum cleaner that would go around the house. And I was talking to it saying, now, Bella, why you over there vacuum? Didn't you already vacuum over there? And I'm thinking, God, I got to get out of this house. Because that was the only person that I could talk to was my robotic vacuum cleaner. And so,
Exactly.
I remember the day that I got a chance to touch my children and my
Hmm.
grandchildren after
Right.
one solid year. And you know how I feel about my grandbabies.
Absolutely.
But I got a chance to touch them, and it was just like, oh my God. And so we need to have you come back. Any parting words to
Yes, I
anybody
would love to.
that you would say that?
So again, I want to thank you for allowing us to talk about this very important issue around suicidal ideation, mental health. We encourage so many to make 2022 the year that you commit to mental wellness. Okay, it
Yes,
doesn't
self
hurt.
care.
It doesn't hurt to
It
get a
doesn't hurt.
checkup. right? We do it with our cars, we do it with our bodies,
Yes,
we do it with everything else except for our minds. And if you really think about it, the mind is the most important
it
organ
is.
in your body. If the
Hmm.
mind shuts down, everything shuts down.
Everything
So
shuts
make
down.
mental wellness your priority. And I'd like to give a shout out to Bishop George Gibson. Uh,
Yes.
he is the president of IMAC, and his right hand, Dr. Lang, who will be carrying out for us this entire mental health ministry for Telehealth 24/7 in our partnership with IMAC in Delaware. And then I just spoke with Bishop George Gibson maybe about a couple hours ago, and we are going to work with other churches and other
Yes.
denominations to really hone in and really help them to develop their mental health
Oh, I
ministries
love it.
and create and do the training for mental health ministry ambassadors so
I
that they
love
will
it.
be knowledgeable, and it'll be another tool in their armamentarium for them to get their membership and folks the help that they need. And so I really appreciate all that you're doing to really get the word out. And again, if you'd like to talk with anyone from Telehealth 24/7, we have culturally competent providers that are there
That's
for
right.
you and can work with you. And you can again go to our website at telehelp247.org, or you can give us a call at 888-247-5767. That's 888-247-5767. Thank you, Lynette, for
You're
all.
so welcome. And I thank you, Robert, for coming to the Speak Out Loud audience and helping us and educating us and helping us become better. And I like the fact that you said 2022 is a year of mental wellness and
Right.
mental health. Do that checkup from the neck up. Robert, thank you so much. And definitely we're going to have you come back again.
Thank you, Lynette. It's my pleasure, and I look forward. And again, everyone, keep an eye out for some new commercials from Roar Media with Lynette Jackson's voice.
I
Thank
do a
you,
lot of
Lynette.
voiceover work for telehealth, and
Awesome.
I
Awesome.
do a lot of voiceover work. Thank you so much, Robert. God bless you, and
God bless
keep
you.
pushing, my brother. Keep pushing.
Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Okay. Awesome, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining another edition of Speak Out Loud, the story behind the brand. I am so excited that I have this platform to just share with you. If you are interested in becoming a guest on Speak Out Loud, you have a story behind your brand. If you've written a book, you started a business, you started a church, you have a ministry, you have something that you want to talk about, you can go to our website, roarmediagroup.com. Our Facebook information is Facebook Roar the Group. You can follow us on Instagram. Please like and share this podcast. Like and share this podcast, because this is the only way that we can prevent death by suicide, mental health in the community, the Black community. Before we go, thank you so much, Teresa. Teresa says thank you. Thank you so much, Teresa. We appreciate you joining us, and really share this podcast out with this man. Let's let it go viral so that we can help people in our community. This is Black History Month, and we want to really make sure that people are getting the help that they need. Well, that's all the time that we have for now. I think I did beat it. I think I beat the football team before they started their stuff. I hear them tuning up a little bit over there. So we're going to get out of here. But before we go, I just want you to know that God loves you. I love you. But most importantly, learn to take some time out of your schedule and learn to love yourself. Bye for now.